Hello, everyone. We apologize for being a couple of minutes late. We had some technical difficulties, largely my fault in this platform. So we apologize to folks for starting late. But welcome to Building Solidarity Through Connection and Care. My name is Tenaja Jordan, and I'm a communications consultant working with Equity in the Center. I'm really excited about this conversation because I love and have admired the work of Building Movement Project for a really long time. And because I don't like to, screw up people's bios, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Adaku to introduce themselves.
Thank you so much again for the invitation and all the work that you and everybody who's listening is doing right now to turn our collective access towards more freedom, more care for us and our people. My name is Adaku Uta. I use all pronouns, beaming to y'all from Lenni Lenape land, also known as Edgewater, New Jersey, by way of Lagos, Nigeria. I am a movement facilitator, abolitionist healer, organizer, have been doing work primarily in racial, reproductive, and healing justice movements for almost 2 decades. And my current home, organizational home, at least one of them, or the main one, is Building Movement Projects. We're a national nonprofit organization that provides really insightful research, really practical tools and resources, and a lot of different pathways for nonprofit organizations, movement leaders, and networks to be able to build transformative relationships that can really cultivate just and equitable futures. Most recently, I was the organizing director at the National Network of Abortion Funds. That is still my political home. And I also get to do some queer and trans organizing here in the global north as well as the global south, where I was raised. So grateful to be here. Thanks again for holding this necessary conversation.
Thank you so much. And so, one of the ways that I'm beginning every meeting and every stream lately is to just to ask these questions. What is holding you up these days? What is keeping you fortified to do this work?
Such a great question, especially from one Black person to another. I think it's a question that we need to be asking ourselves more and more and answering really honestly. And and to be honest, I am feeling a lot of fortification by witnessing and being a part of community that is just continuing to show up in the ways that we can. I've been moved bearing witness to my neighbors who are choosing to practice community defense as a way to protect our fellow community members from ICE. I have loved witnessing folks who are getting groceries for elders and making sure that elders who are being kicked off of Medicaid still have access to their medication. And then shout out to abortion funders who are, even in the wild climate that we're in, are still trying to figure out how folks are able to get access to reproductive care in their own terms. And I think it's such an important thing to amplify and raise because every single moment we are choosing who do we want to be and who do we want to become. And in a moment where this Trump administration is bending towards cruelty again and again and again, there's so many folks like us who are choosing community over individualism, who are choosing care over control, who are choosing connection over isolation. And I think it's not a small thing to do. And in our work at BMP, um, this work, this everyday showing up is such a significant scaffolding that really makes solidarity happen, not just within organizations, but in our lives. So I'm grateful to be a part of community that is not perfect, very complicated, and still being like, you know what, we got us. Like we're gonna keep showing up again and again. Also, want to shout out to something that's been grounding me. I just moved to New Jersey, and there is a local. I'm a dancer and I love dancing. There's like a local line dancing spot here. So getting into all of the line dancing these days is also
Mm.
feeding my spirit.
I love that. I love that. And I have to say, on the nature of community, so I live in Little Haiti, Lenny Lenape Land, Brooklyn, New York. But
Come on.
I live in Little Haiti, and it's always been what I love about this community is that it's always been a close knit community. It's a community that sort of has resisted gentrification in a lot of forms by insisting on itself. Like, yes, there are gentrified businesses, there are like a little strip of restaurants here and there, but there's a very vocal and very active politically organized community that sticks
Yeah.
up for its own businesses and
Um,
occupies seats of government, the whole nine out here. And so I always love my neighborhood, but I am most proud because when ICE came to our neighborhood,
talk about it.
the Haitian community, the
No,
whole Caribbean community
come on.
came out in force and said, no,
That's right. That's
you're not taking anybody. You're
yes.
not taking nobody. The whole community in droves came out and literally drove ICE out of our community. And then
Yes.
a little over a week after that, we had a street fair. And what I loved was like the same vendors were outside. We had
Yes.
people outside with the jerk chicken drums,
Come
the
on.
oxtail, the everything. And I was outside just like, I mean, the traffic was wild and, we forgive that. But I was like, I'm so happy that my community is still my community right now.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
People
I
came together,
do.
held hands, pushed ICE out, and then we went back to our lives.
That's
You
right.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really beautiful. I love
It's
going
so
outside
beautiful.
and still seeing Caribbean beauty. I love them still seeing each other haggle with each other over the price of sugar cane and mango. Like,
It's not a market without bartering. It's not a market without bartering,
it really is not. And that simple joy of my community still being my community at this time is
Yeah.
a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I am so proud of the way that our community showed up in we had a primary election, right?
Yes.
And no matter what side of it on or a candidate you were for, just the sheer amount of people who were outside. I don't think I've ever seen so many people canvassing, right?
Yeah.
And so that's sort of that people are not checking out on the process, and that this is a time that at least in my communities, has galvanized people towards civic engagement,
Yeah.
has made me super proud.
Yeah.
And then also, I'm happy to be working with an organization where their mission is truly the North Star.
Mhm.
To say that we advance intersectional racial equity here at Equity in the Center is a value that we live. Like, I'm a
Yeah.
Black queer disabled person, right?
Shout
And
out.
I'm out here being visible, talking to you, and having this conversation, leading the work, right?
Yeah.
It to me sort of it fortifies me personally to combat erasure. Right. I live at the intersection of multiple marginalized identities, and everything out here is squeezing my populations.
Mm.
And it's extraordinary to be in this place where I can still show up, and be myself and sort of be recognized and appreciated professionally.
Yeah.
Segueing from that, as I was saying, we do live in this deeply polarized era where people are sort of essentially making their living and anchoring campaigns in the divisiveness, in the polarizedness, right? And so, how do we move from this sharp division to a coordinated diversity, right? Where we are refocusing on the strength of our differences.
Yeah. Before I land into that question, I just want to say that my heart just feels really warm hearing the way that you're nested in community, especially as a Black queer disabled person, and choosing to be visible in the ways that you are. I know that that takes risk and courage, and we should have communities that are holding us with the care that we're both describing. And I just love that we are a part of just generations of work, generations of ecosystems of care that continue to see each other through violence of the state, and also see each other in joy, in the joy of jerk chicken at the market.
Yeah.
So shout out to that, and shout out to us. And yeah, with this really great question that you just raised, we are in a moment where difference is not only present, but it is being intentionally weaponized against us. We have political actors who are choosing to invest in polarization because they know that it will disrupt how we're able to connect with our power, how we're able to build it, how we're able to resource from the powers that we could gain in the future. And I think that for you all, you say talk about coordinated diversity, we talk about solidarity. And when we say solidarity, we are not talking about it from a transactional lens, but through a transformative lens that is really holding a set of intentional and consistent practices that are deepening relationships, that are also transforming who we are as a people so that we can show up in right relationship, and also transforming our institutions, and then deepening the infrastructure that connects our organizations and movements over time. And really what we hope is that it builds our collective capacity to be with change, be with chaos, crisis, and contradiction in a way that is reshaping not only policies and systems, but our culture that's needed for liberation. And then the work that we do, when we look at difference, I mean, it's one of the most humbling and beautiful things about being a human being and being an ecosystem. And we see it, we see our capacity for being inside of solidarity, not just about having shared alignment inside of organizations, but again, like building the necessary relationships that we need to be able to show up for each other, being able to have and practice shared risk and principled struggle, and recognizing that difference is constant, whether it's across histories, identities, strategies, tactics, the level of stakes that we have in any kind of um, impacts that we're facing in our community. And part of what we need to be practicing is creating spaces that can really be wide enough to hold the complexity of our lives. And I think to be able to do that really, really well, some of that requires a new set of skills that some of us might have to embody in ways that we're not embodying now, whether that is being able to meet harm generatively without collapsing into rupture, being able to disagree without withdrawing or withholding resources or attention or presence, being able to hold difference that can sharpen our strategies rather than splintering us. And then again, being able to be with conflict in a way that is helping us to cultivate the muscle of intentional care rather than just separation. And it's part of why in the work that we do, we're not just in the business of just um, teaching people about what solidarity is, but supporting how folks are able to be in practice of solidarity. So we have a number of public programs like the State of Solidarity that brings together cross movement organizers and organizations to have conversations about, yes, what is happening in this political landscape? How are we making sense of it together? And then how are we building really intentional tools, resources, skills to be able to practice solidarity in real time? We have a set of different frameworks and guides and resources that we've developed with people that we've worked with, both local and national organizations, to identify like what are core principles that we need to practice to make solidarity real. And then we have programs like our cohort where we bring people together over a stretch of time to do more in-depth work together to both assess the infrastructure that they currently have, and then identify what's the infrastructure that they need to be building together to meet to do the work that they're doing as well as they can in ways that are more coordinated, more resource, more connected, and a lot more transformative.
So I've just shared with folks in the chat the link to the
Thank
Transformative
you.
Solidarity Guide. But I want to go back to some words that you said because I thought they were absolutely beautiful. This phrase you said, meet harm without descending into rupture.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, very simple but very amazing because harm is going to happen, right? Solidarity and being in solidarity does not mean that we subsume differences to be together,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
And a core part of being in solidarity with folks is, the ability or willingness to try to see things from their perspective, right?
Yeah.
So I had to uplift how beautiful those words are,
Thank
right?
you.
Because they're thinking they're a really loving frame of on conflict, right? And that conflict doesn't have to derail collaboration. I thought it was beautiful. And
Thank
now I want to insert another before we go into, because I want to make sure we have enough time to discuss the solidarity is cohort. But I wanted to, something that you were saying was making me think about um, there's this like incrementalist and middle of the road argument I see creeping up a lot in a lot of channels. People saying, oh, well, progressive organizations and the movements have a messaging problem. You know, we shouldn't have to have a PhD to understand what people are, this abolition, solidarity, this term, that term, right? And it's sort of, as someone, and as a narrative change strategist, it's been really irking me, and I haven't seen people respond enough to this sort of, that argument. I'm like, no, we have to believe in people's ability to understand and build bridges to understanding.
Yes.
And the bridge to understanding is recognizing that people want to understand each other, right?
Yes.
And so we may not begin speaking the same language, but I think of solidarity as well as a commitment to and a willingness to learn each other's language, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's also a both and too. It's yes, how can we keep building those bridges of shared understanding? And then how can we create more access so that more of our folks understand? Because I do believe that there are times when language, and I am a writer, I love words. And I love the way that words can really communicate and evoke what we are trying to shift and change. And it's also the ways that we are able to build belonging. And I think sometimes certain words, certain languages, certain phrases can be a barrier to how people are able to understand what's happening in their own lives, and also to find political home. And so I get really curious about the both and of, yes, how do we learn each other's language, and also how can we create more entry points, more pathways for people to be more seen, be more witnessed, and be more belonged as a part of our movement spaces.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And now I believe I have that question I have about solidarity is, right?
Yes.
How does the cohort build the capacity to meet the moment, and where can folks learn more about the Solidarity is cohort?
Absolutely. So, so the Solidarity is cohort is one of many ways that we are meeting the moment, and this is we've been doing the cohort for a number of years, and it's an opportunity particularly for newer organizers who've been doing organizing for the last 1 to 3 years, to develop their skills, their competence, their relationships to build power in these times. And I think this moment that's fraught with a lot of chaos, a lot of shock and awe, particularly for new organizers, one of the big themes that I've been seeing is just a desire to want to do something, but not really sure where to start, where to go, like feeling torn across so many different possibilities, or feeling frozen with a lot of fear around what to do. And this is a space where you can bring all of that, bring all of the reality of how your body is choosing to show up, but also bringing your desire to want to make change and build your own power within your own community. And so we gather for 6 weeks from September through October, every Thursday for 2.5 hours. And it's a free training for people to have an opportunity to assess and nurture what are the organizational conditions right now that are either supporting solidarity or getting in the way of solidarity. It's a place to sharpen the skills that you already have. Even though we have like a really, really great crew of facilitators and mentors, we really believe in wisdom democracy and hearing from folks' wisdom and what they have to offer around solidarity, whether it's their knowing or their questions, and at the same time sharpen the tools that you have to build more transformative solidarity practices. As we were talking about, conflict is inevitable, so a big part of the training is learning how we navigate conflict in ways that are a lot more generative and really feeding back into community rather than tethering us away from each other. And then this is lifelong work, this work of shifting our conditions to support our freedom. And unfortunately, sometimes our bodies can get caught in the crossfire and we're not able to sustain that work over time. And so another fractal of the cohort is learning, how do we sustain ourselves in our communities? How do we create the ecosystems of care and support that can keep us in the work as long as we want to be there, in ways that are not leaving our bodies behind. And then the last big thing is, y'all, sometimes doing this work can be so lonely. And you might even be working with hundreds of people, but you don't feel seen in it, or you don't feel like you have any kind of relationship in it. And one of our big goals with this cohort is to build a community of practice that doesn't just exist for the 6 weeks that we're going to be together, but hopefully comrades that you have for a really long time. You know, we've heard from folks that they found friendships, you know, through the cohort, strategic partners, people that they've built new campaigns with, thought partners, coaches. And that's our hope, is that, you know, it's one of our goals at BMP is to really build out and deepen the ecosystems, the infrastructures necessary for people to build a more just world. And this is one of many places that we're getting to do that. And so you can find out more information about it on our website. We're going to drop the link in the chat, solidarityis.org. Applications are open right now through July 21st, which is Monday at noon, at noon Eastern. So get your applications in. And yeah, if you're not able to be a part of the cohort this year, there's so many other ways to plug in. Like I said, we have a number of public programs that you can be a part of. Our next State of Solidarity, our next public program is September 30th, and it's actually all around conflict. Like, how are organizations and movements navigating conflict in this particular time? We also have our Solidarity Is podcast, where, my goodness, we've been talking to just incredible leaders, organizers, cultural workers who are based locally and nationally, who are figuring out some really innovative ways to be practicing solidarity right now. So take a listen to our podcast, and also join our newsletter for more information. There's lots of resources. We actually have a new resource that's about to drop in the next week or so about how do we practice solidarity in authoritarian conditions, recognizing that different conditions requires a different set of tools, a different set of embodiment, a different set of quality of relationships to be able to do this work well.
That is awesome and very thorough. I'm a big fan of the podcast. I encourage everybody. The podcast is really wonderful. That episode after the first 100 days was really, you know, another one of the better pieces of 100 days content that was out at that time, I thought.
Thank you.
So I was just scanning the chat for a couple of minutes. Some folks have some questions. The link to the Solidarity cohort page and application is in the chat as well for folks. Amazing. Also, too, and I'm going to ask too, because I believe also Building Movement Project is also getting ready to embark on the next iteration of the Race to Lead survey as well, right?
That's right.
Awesome.
Yes. So for folks who don't know, we have been holding this survey for the last couple of years, and it really has been a staple for a lot of nonprofits to support our collective understanding around, one, what is the state of race in our organizations? How are people, particularly people of color, who are leaders, how are they treated? What do they need? How might organizations need to shift to really buttress the leadership of folks of color who are doing this necessary work? So we would love to hear your wisdom, your experiences, whether it's wherever it is in the spectrum, from like really, really great to demoralizing. And we are going to be harvesting all of this information and sharing it back with you all with a set of tools and resources, so that you not only have information about what's happening across the field, but what might need to have tools and resources that you can use to shift what's happening in your organization, so that our leaders are as supported as they can be.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I see no questions or anything coming into the chat. If you have any questions in the future, just this link will be on our LinkedIn page. Feel free to comment them, and one of us, probably myself, will be the one who gets back to you. But Adaku, this was wonderful.
Amazing.
Amazing. I feel like we could do 6 minutes of this solidly.
I'm in Brooklyn all the time, so we need to link. And truly, I really honor and appreciate the work that you are doing and who you are. Thank you.
Definitely, likewise. And now, because I can't resist, we're both facilitators. Do we
Yes.
want to take one word to describe how we are feeling right now?
Ah, love. Okay, well, I mean, that is the word. I feel humbled.
Hmm.
Yes, there's a lot of love in my heart and also a lot of humility.
I am. Whenever I think it's nourishing me to meet people who are like-minded and who share
Yeah.
the same values. So my word for the end of our session together today is energized. I
Yes,
feel energized by
that
this
means a lot.
exchange today.
That means a lot. Thank you again for inviting me. This was really nourishing to my spirit.
Thank you, and thank everybody else who joined us today. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
The mystery. Ooh, ooh.